What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? Happy Thursday Night Football. The Baltimore Ravens win a game. They are now 7-3, and at one point in time tonight, it did not look like they were going to win. And it looked like the Bengals were about to be 5-5. You start doing the math, you're like, God, and then all of a sudden it flipped. And then Ja'Marr Chase made a play, and it kind of flipped again. I mean, just a bananas second half. It kind of crystallized tonight. A lot of you guys hit me up about Zach Taylor. I've been indifferent. I thought tonight was a pretty embarrassing moment for him down the stretch of that game in the second half. Burrow getting peppered, Ja'Marr Chase making plays. I don't know what else to say about the Ravens. I mean, Lamar Jackson is having a dramatically better statistical season than last year. I mean, he's on pace to throw probably in the high 30s of touchdowns. Last year, I don't even think he threw 25 and obviously won the MVP. This year's a harder MVP class just in terms of Josh is having an excellent season, Jared Goff. But Lamar, it was just brilliant. But I think the story of the game, again, is like, this team's offense is better than last year, but their defense is just atrocious. I mean, it really is. So on this Fugazi Friday, the Ravens defense is a major, as I'm supposed to say it, Fugazi. But we'll dive into that and some other stuff around the NFL. But before we do, that game actually looked fun to be at when the Amazon crew went to the fan. It looked like he had pretty good seats. And he's just screaming at the Ravens. I mean, they looked anemic on offense. You went, God, I've never been to a game there, actually. And if you want to go to a game, college, pro, you want to go to a concert, you want to go to a comedy show, you want to go enjoy yourself, just download a little app called Game Time, the official ticketing app of this podcast. And here's what you do. You search for whatever you want. Your team, the venue where you live by, a game you want to go to, an artist, you want to see if the artist is coming near you. You want to see where the artist is playing. You can go see them somewhere. And I can't tell you how easy this app is to use. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price is guaranteed. There's a lot going on. I honestly, I don't even know where to start. So I think what we will do is we will just start at the end of the game and then kind of work our way backwards and then go back to the end of the game. I love that Zach Taylor went for 2. You had to go for 2 in that moment, right? You're playing Lamar Jackson, who at any moment, whether you rush 10, rush 1, can have a 30, 40-yard play. And they have had huge plays in the second half. You had to go for 2. All for it. Joe Burrow, and listen, there was a play early in the game where there was defensive holding on the Ravens, and I think it was third down. It got the Bengals a free first down. They scored the next play. So it was definitely a 4-point swing. I have a huge problem with defensive holding. I hate that call as an automatic first down. I'm all for making it a 5-yard penalty and not an automatic first down. But like the hands to the face, and I give Joe Burrow a lot of credit. It's hard to watch him and go, this is everything I want in a quarterback. Well, Lamar's kind of that right now, but I just mean in terms of toughness and complaining, he never does it. I mean, he never says shit. And he was getting destroyed tonight. And on that last play, he gets cracked in the face. Now, that's not the reason. He missed the wide receiver, or I guess it was the tight end on the smaller DB. But he never complains. And he probably should have, because that's a penalty. And we can complain that, like, in my youth, that wasn't a penalty, but it's pretty clear and obvious. And there were a couple times on that drive where he's hit. And to me, the difference on this, like when Sam Darnold got drugged to the ground, they had to go 100 yards on that Thursday night game. This is a 2-point play. Like, with the playoffs on the line, like, this game more than likely is going to be the reason that, like, you look up and they're 8-9. and they're the 10th seed or the ninth seed or the 8th seed and they miss the playoffs. They have lost to the Ravens now twice where they have had double-digit leads in the second half. But like that can't happen. And the ref behind the back judge is standing right behind Joe Burrow, like me or you, just watching the play. It's like, listen, I didn't go to officiating school. I've never talked to Terry McCauley on the phone and got a breakdown of my job requirements, but I'm pretty fucking sure you're supposed to keep an eye on that guy. And he's watching the pass. It's like, bro, he's getting cold cocked in the face, and you're watching the ball fly over 87's head. That's embarrassing. I'm going to start with the Bengals because I get asked a lot by Bengal fans about Zach Taylor, and my stance has been pretty consistent. I'm kind of indifferent. I don't think he's as bad as they've made him out to be, but obviously he's probably not as good as the guy that had a lead late in the Super Bowl and went toe-to-toe with the Chiefs a year later, again in the AFC Championship game. Like, he's clearly kind of middle of the road. I thought tonight was a pretty embarrassing stretch. I mean, the first half of that game, the Ravens looked like it was a mid-August practice, and they were just kind of over it. Their body language, Lamar's body language, the whole thing. I mean, it just looked like they didn't want to be there. And sometimes this happens. As the season goes on, these short weeks, you never really know. I didn't bet tonight. And if I would have, I probably would have taken the Bengals +6, who ended up covering, but I didn't want that. I just think these games are just weird, short weeks. These guys are exhausted, and the Ravens look like it. They looked in that first half, it's like, they're kind of mailing in this game. And I'm writing down notes. I'm like, well, they're about to have 4 losses. If Pittsburgh wins this weekend, like they play Pittsburgh in a week, all of a sudden you go, they could lose the division well before Thanksgiving. How are we not playing with any effort? And then they come out of halftime, down 14-7. Bengals like first or second drive. Jamar Chase goes 300 yards on him on one play. I mean, this guy combined in the 2 games he's played them is basically 370 or 470 yards. He has 5 touchdowns. He's eviscerating them. It's like, guys, how is no one covering this guy? They're up 21-7. And you're like, what? Everyone's shitting on Zach Taylor this year. They're about to be 5-5. Who does he really need to catch to make the playoffs? And I've written them off. It's like the Broncos, the Colts. I mean, the Jets got to win like 6 straight games to have a pulse. I'm like, it's probably a playoff team. They haven't even played the Steelers yet. Look at Burrow and Chase dominating. And then Brown fumbles. And then it's on like Donkey Kong. The Ravens immediately score. The Bengals get the ball back and actually have a pretty good drive going. I do not understand on 3rd and 4th and short, on multiple drives, on 3rd and short. Like, it's pretty basic when you watch the good offensive play callers, starting with Andy Reid, but then McVay, the LaFleurs, the Shanahans. Why am I running a go route anywhere on the play? You have on your team Jamar Chase. I would say, I'm watching that game tonight thinking, can you imagine, like, has any wide receiver duo ever aged even better as fast as Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase? Can you imagine some back in 2019, the opposing SEC DB coaches during the week when they were getting ready for those 2 guys? Because we all agree Justin Jefferson is the best wide receiver in the league. Sometimes you watch Jamar Chase, you're like, I'm pretty sure that guy's the 2nd best wide receiver. Like, how do you stop that guy? But the one thing Jefferson or Chase is great at, he's great around the line of scrimmage. Run a quick slant, run a quick out, get him the ball, and they're throwing these bombs to a rookie wide receiver. And then they punted up 21-14, where I thought, it's like, you got a pretty good field goal kicker. I know the field goal would be 56-ish yards, but all of a sudden you could be up 10 points. They punt. What happens? A couple plays later, this is a team fighting for their season right now because of how shitty they started. They basically played 2-hand touch, 3 different guys, and Wallace went 75, 80 yards. The moment that happened, you're like, did the Bengals just quit? Like, what happened? How does that happen? And then they get the ball back again. It's 21-20 because Tucker misses the extra point. And 3rd and short, 4th and short, across their own 50. They make some good plays to get some movement on the drive. They throw multiple go routes. So it's like, listen, ultimately, Joe Burrow is the level of player, and he's an outstanding player. He bears some of the responsibility. But how can the play call come into the headset without just, I don't know, a schemed like 2-point play to get us the first down, to keep the clock going? You're playing the best offense that you're going to play all season long. So, one, it's a game of keep away, which you did an outstanding job of in the first half. And then the second half, it's like you're getting into a 3-point shooting contest with these guys. What the fuck are you doing? So, to me, you're either coaching it or allowing it to happen. You can't allow Burrow to throw that play or that route by the play that you call into the huddle, especially when you have good tight ends, you have a running back who can catch. Burrow's been dumping it down to him all night. And you have this dominant wide receiver. Oh, yeah, their defensive backs blow this year. They cannot cover anybody. And you're going for what? You can't have a kill shot with 15 minutes left in the game because of the offense you're playing. If anything, the flow of the game, like, keep slowing it down, keep being methodical on first down, or on, keeping the chains moving. Actually, scoring too fast is problematic. It's why he 100% went for 2 at the end of the game, because he knew that 100% Lamar would get them in field goal range. Now, does Tucker hit it? The way things are going this year, who knows? But it was a lock they were getting in field goal range. Well, don't you have to think that way in the middle of the third quarter when you have a lead? And he didn't. I didn't understand what was going on. The play calling was an embarrassment. It really was. Like, how does that happen? How are you not running the ball on some third downs to try to, I don't know, slow down the game a little bit, get a free couple yards because they think you're going to pass it. It was an abomination tonight in the second half for a long stretch for Zach Taylor. And he ended up coming back because late in the game, when it felt like the Ravens were dead, they hit Jamar Chase on like a 70-yard bomb where Marcus Williams has no clue what he's doing. And Chase is wide open and walks the ball into the end zone. But it was like you never should have been in that position. So my takeaway tonight was I kind of understand where Bengals fans are coming from. And I think if this team misses the playoffs, I think Zach Taylor's clearly in major trouble. And there's no way you watch and go, yeah, I think people would be lined up to coach that quarterback. I understand this organization is a little different and historically pretty cheap with coaches, but sure seems like a pretty special quarterback and a pretty special wide receiver. And clearly they got some good defensive players. But this is twice now where they had the Ravens on the ropes. This is, many people think, it's hard to call them the best team in football, regardless how good their offense looks, when their DBs are just Humphreys can play. But they lost Kyle Hamilton tonight, who is not just arguably their best or second best defensive player. He's one of the best defensive players in the league. It looks like he rolled his ankle. I don't really know, but then he's in a boot. He never comes back. I mean, that's a pretty devastating injury. So he's long gone, and they can't cover anybody. And you still lose. And Burrow and Chase now against these guys, like they can't make much better plays. And you lose both games, and now you're 4-6. Like, you're just not going to be good enough. It really is pretty sad. So I do understand the frustration coming from Bengals fans. And it feels like it starts and ends with the head coach. Start slow every season. You've had these massive games against Harbaugh, who's Hall of Fame coach, Lamar, Hall of Fame player, and you had opportunities to beat them. Like, you were kicking their ass. I'm not a big UFC fight guy, but it'd be the equivalent of like, you fucking need this guy to the head a couple times. He's lying on the ground. It's time for the kill shot. And all of a sudden you just whiff. And all of a sudden you're on your back getting your ass kicked. You're like, how did that happen? Wasn't this guy just about to tap out? Wasn't this guy just about to pull Anthony Richardson? And then Harbaugh, Lamar, and Eric DeCosta are hugging on the sideline. So I just an awful loss for the Bengals. Especially, a team that looked like they showed up to lose. The Ravens showed up to lose. But when you have Lamar Jackson, I mean, these two guys combined for 8 passing touchdowns. Quarterback, Burrow threw for 430 yards. I mean, that's crazy. They can't even block anybody. He threw for 430 yards. I mean, Lamar, 290, 4 touchdowns. He's an unstoppable force. But, like, there's nothing left to be said about the way Lamar's playing this year. He won the MVP last year, and to me, he looks dramatically more dominant right now. Part of it is Zay Flowers a year older, Henry, huge upgrade at wide receiver, or excuse me, running back. Andrews is healthy, which obviously is big. I mean, tonight he had six catches for 68. The Wallace guy, I don't even know that much about. He's like a fourth-year player. I mean, he had an 84-year-old. I mean, that was on the Bengals defense, but Aguilar's made some plays. They add Deontay Johnson from the Panthers in a weird way from the Steelers, who they've probably always liked. But their offense ain't the problem. It's going to be their defense. And I just think, like, you can't be a Super Bowl contender when your defense is this bad. Like, their defensive back unit is equivalent to, I mean, the bad teams in the NFL. Yet their offense is as dominant as you're ever going to see. They have a Hall of Fame quarterback, a Hall of Fame running back, excellent skill guys, excellent coordinator. It's like they have a Super Bowl offense. Speaking of LSU wide receivers, LSU last year had a national championship offense. They had Jaden Daniels, elite. Brian Thomas Jr., awesome. Malik Neighbors, unreal. Offensive stats up the wazoo. They could not stop anybody. Obviously, college is different than the pros. And last year with the Final Four, you lose games. But, like, they could not have won a national championship with that defense. You cannot win a Super Bowl with this defense. It's not possible. Now, we'll see the health of Kyle Hamilton, but it's crazy because right now your quarterback can't dominate anymore. It's like it's literally impossible. I mean, the way he dominates on some of these scramble plays, whether he throws, whether he runs, it's crazy. I mean, he is so dominant. Obviously, Burrow is too, but he doesn't move. Everything's throwing. Lamar is doing that throwing. His touch is so great now, climbing in the pocket. What I love about him now, too, as a runner, is he's not looking to run. He's looking to pass. And this goes back to the way I grew up on football. Steve Young, who was a lot like Lamar Jackson in the 80s, said the way you become a great player is learn how to dominate passing the ball from the pocket. And Lamar has learned that. And his running at any moment can just be like, how did he just do that? But if I'm him, I'm like, John, what is going on with our defense? This can't be it. Like, this can't be it. And I think if you're a Ravens fan, you just got to keep your fingers crossed for Hamilton's health, because your defense was already pretty piss poor, in terms of pass defense. And he is just, I mean, he's just an elite player. So that's a very, very scary injury, but fun Thursday night game. The NFL season is rolling along and contenders are separating from the pack. The one thing that hasn't changed this season, DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, is the number one place to bet touchdowns. I love doing it. Touchdown passes, touchdown runs, long runs, the tush push. Well, not today. You name it, they will do it. Bet on touchdowns. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like a player scoring a touchdown. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Here's a reason for new customers to do a touchdown dance of their own. I do it every day in the office watching football. Bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings app today and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets. If your bet wins, you win. Bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Okay, we did this last week, and I thought, let's just do it again. As we head into week 10, let's just ask 5 questions. 5 things that, I'm fired up on, that I want to see this weekend, that I'm fascinated by. And first and foremost, number one is, can the Washington Commanders really win this division? It's weird, right? At this point in time, we all acknowledge their quarterback is sweet. Their head coach feels strongly in the mix. I mean, obviously, Dan Campbell's having a great season as well for Coach of the Year. I mean, Andy Reid's undefeated with random dudes on offense. So, listen, Coach of the Year, you can have an incredible year coaching and not win it. But Dan Campbell, what he's done is, or excuse me, Dan too, but Dan Quinn, it's remarkable. It really is. And, like, it's at the point now where you beat the Steelers at home and you're 8-2, playing the Eagles on Thursday night in Philadelphia. assuming, and I think most people do assume, the Eagles are going to take down Cooper Rush and the Cowboys, that you have the exact same record as them in the middle of November. Like that's pretty crazy. It really is. And it feels like, like a college team that's like 4-0, then they're 5-0, and then all of a sudden they're like 7-0. You're like, this team can't win the national championship. And by the end of the season, it's like, yeah, they're just undefeated. They're in the playoffs. Now they might not win or probably won't win the national championship, BYU or something, but you have to take them like you got to take them for real. And if they win this game, there's really no disputing like this team can win the division. Like if they win and they're 8-2, then they play the Eagles, which obviously is going to be very difficult. And you could argue, okay, playing at Philly, we lose, we're 8-3. They still have not played the Cowboys yet. They still play the Titans and they play the Saints. So, and then they get Philly at home. Like, listen, I have been late to the party on this, have not gambled on them, have been very just, is this real? Like, they're a playoff team. Like, honestly, if they win, whether they win or lose this game at 7 wins with some of the remaining games they have on their schedule, like, they are a lock to get to 10. And I think it would be very, very surprising if they don't get 11. They beat the Steelers, like 12, 13 wins is on the table, and obviously division. And like we've talked about before, the pressure would be on Philly. And that's where the other question comes in. Like, are the Eagles just going to go to Dallas and completely put a stake in their heart? Their season ended last week, right? Once you lose to Atlanta, we all acknowledge they just suck. Saw a headline. I mean, Dak said that. Like, Dak was quoted on television by lip readers. We fucking suck. He's not wrong. Saw a headline right before I jumped on here that Dak tore some of his hamstring off the bone. I can't even imagine how much that hurt. Like, I mean, the pain that Dak has to be feeling sucks. And clearly, as of right now, they haven't quote unquote officially put him on injury reserve, but he's clearly not playing for a while. They've won games before with Cooper Rush, but I think we have to acknowledge a couple years ago their team was a lot better. Now Micah could come back, but CD's banged up. They trade for Mingo. I mean, he's got 12 catches this year, so I don't expect him to come and hit the ground running. As we talked about earlier in the week, that trade was really for the next couple years to get a cheap player that ideally can be a starter. But like Howie and Sirianni and Jalen and Saquon can go in there and just clown them. And they are the national game at, for us, Mountain Pacific Standard, or not Mountain Pacific Standard Time, that doesn't exist. I get very thrown off on the time change, right? I'm Pacific Standard Time for 6 months here in Arizona, and then we don't do anything, and we just turn into Mountain Standard Time. I'm a West Coast guy in California where you turn the clocks back. Here you do not do that, and it really is. It has me swimming. So that game for me is a 2:25 kickoff. I would imagine it's Brady and Burkhart, and a lot of people are going to be watching this game. And this game last couple years felt like, I mean, a really, really big deal. Obviously, it was. I mean, these are the two teams over the last 3 years that have won the division. The Cowboys have won this thing 2 of the last 3 years. And it feels like Howie and Sirianni, are they just going to blow these guys out? Like, are we going to look up and this thing's going to be 35-7? And we start talking like, Jerry, you might as well just put Mike McCarthy out of his misery. Is Saquon just going for $180 and 3 touchdowns? And Jalen just cruising, no interceptions, no turnovers, just efficient, throwing some touchdowns. Is that how this is going to go? And Cooper Rush just looks completely overwhelmed. This thing could get out. I mean, it's already out of hand. And as I said, if you're a Cowboy fan at this point, when you're clearly not going to the playoffs, you're clearly having the season from hell, you just want to lose out. You really do. Because you have to view this at this point in time. You're going to have a new coach next season. So you're going to want the best picks possible. Like, yeah, ask Charger fans last year at this point in time. If I would have said, hey, you're basically not going to win the rest of the season, what they would have said, well, that sucks. But it's going to lead you to Jim Harbaugh and a bunch of sweet draft picks. Like, you're starting right tackle. You're arguably your most talented wide receiver. Like, you can change the franchise around. So just take your lickings. Just take your absolute punishment as a fan, which sucks, but happens to us all. There is no avoiding this. And once you become kind of good, you never really expect it. I know people were down on the Cowboys. No one expected this. And it could get really ugly. 3. What's Christian McCaffrey going to look like? Because last year, non-quarterback, he was easily one of the best players in the NFL. And I would just say, even when he was on Carolina, when he has been fully healthy, he has been one of the more, I would say, more unique players I've ever seen. He's one of the best running backs of like the last 20, 25 years in terms of the total package. There is nothing the guy can't do. And he was tailor-made for Kyle. Then he gets injured and he just hasn't played all season long, which, again, no one can exactly quantify what happened. And I'm sure he's either talking today or tomorrow, and he'll definitely talk after the game. But like, even his dad has said on podcasts, like, yeah, it's kind of mysterious. It's just, we don't exactly know. So what version are they getting? Like, are they getting 100%? I'm healthy. I got fresh legs. Or is this a guy that looks a little rusty? Because if they do get pretty good high-level Christian McCaffrey, that's a problem for the rest of the league. I mean, this is adding one of the best players. Like, what position does he play? Well, he's a running back, but he also can catch at any moment like 10 catches a game, and no one can guard him in the open field. And you can utilize him basically in every element of your offense. And as a player, he can run inside, he can run outside, he can catch the ball, he can pass protect. He is just the total package. I mean, listen, Saquon is a Hall of Fame talent. But the one knock on him is like, hands, good, not great. And as we saw, he dropped that ball early in the season against Atlanta that cost him a game, which you could argue wasn't totally his fault. The coaching staff never should have put him in that spot. But that, like, he has some drops. He doesn't have, like, this isn't Marshall Faulk or LaDainian Tomlinson or Christian McCaffrey. Like, that is not a problem. And one thing this should help is Purdy. Check the ball down, throw it to him. And a check down goes for 30 yards. But is that the guy they're getting? I don't know. I talked about it with Stuckey. I like the 49ers to kill Tampa this week. But I am a little like, I'm as interested as anyone as what does this player look like? 4th. Are the Jets really going to come back and be a playoff contender? They obviously have no margin for error. They're 3-6. And when you look at the AFC, between Pittsburgh and Baltimore, and I'm recording this part before the Thursday night game, one of those two teams is winning the division. And the other one of those teams, I would say 95% is going to be the 5 seed. So you're looking at a division winner, which is going to be the 2nd or 3rd seed. And then you're looking at the 5 seed. And then when you look at the 6 seed, look at the Chargers, who are 5-3, play the Titans this week. And based on the remaining part of their schedule, as well as their head coach, they're going to the playoffs. So I think it's fair to say there is one playoff spot open. Obviously, the Jets don't have a snowball's chance in hell to win the division. The Bills, you could put the X next to their name right now on ESPN.com. Like, they've clinched the division. So can the Jets get the 7 seed? I would 100% bet against it, simply because their coaching staff stinks and they're a team full of mercenaries. And if things get hard, we've seen it over and over, they tend to fold. But they can't lose this game. This is what happens when you start 2-6. You have no margin for error. So this is a game. Somehow the line's kind of gone back and forth. I looked this morning. I think Arizona was like +1. How are the Jets favored? Now, maybe they will win this game. And if they do, awesome. You're now 4-6. So you still have to win 2 more games just to get back to 500. Now, when you look at the rest of the landscape, the 7 seed is, the Colts have a lot of issues, right? And we'll see how Flacco plays this week, right? Do they go back to Anthony Richardson? So there are still some question marks. The Bengals aren't technically dead when it comes to the 7 seed. I do believe that you're going to have to get to 9 So at 3-6, with 8 games remaining to get to 9, you have to win 7 games. Excuse me, bad math. You have to win 6 games. So you have to go 6-3. Can they go 6-3? I don't know. Is that math correct? If they go 6-3, they would be 9-9. Excuse me, awful at math. They would have to go 6-2. Now, I do have a couple degrees. Probably cheated a little too much in math over the years, though I do love it. I keep my own books here. Actually, I've added an accountant. He runs the payroll, but you know what I mean. Uh, 3-6, 8 games remaining. You'd have to go 6-2. That was bad. But is this team going 6-2? I don't care if you play, the shittiest teams in the league every single week. They've not shown a propensity, and actually, it wouldn't be 6-2 because they just beat Houston. It would be going 7-2 over a 9-game stretch. I do have a hard time envisioning that, and that's just to get to 9 wins. And last but not least, is Trevor Lawrence career doomed? It was reported today that he probably will not play this weekend. He has a shoulder injury. Jay Gruden, John's brother, was on the old X app, formerly known as Twitter, tweeting away that he has sources. He coached the Jags once upon a time. That Trevor's going to need surgery. I think there's decent chance we don't see Trevor the rest of the season. So this team, who is going to fire their coach, I would imagine as well fire their GM and have a complete reset with the franchise. The problem is you can't reset the franchise because you just paid this guy $200 million. So whoever is interested in coming to coach this team goes, I have to rehab and somehow create a good player out of the version of this guy we have seen who has been at best average, who makes a ton of money, and who now has 2 straight years of being injured a lot. Is this a good job? Is this a good job? And I don't know. Like, even the Bears, right? The Bears' job is going to come open. Even if you don't believe, and I would imagine at this point, like, yeah, is Caleb ever going to be a top 5 quarterback? Let's just try to get him to be a top 12 quarterback. And I bet a lot of guys go, I think I can create him to become a top 12 quarterback. Our defense is already good. We need to improve the offensive line and then have him play within the system of our operation. That is doable. We're not trying to make him Patrick Mahomes. Can I just make him like some version of Dak Prescott? A lighter version of like Jalen Hurts, right? Can I do some version? I'm not looking to get Lamar Jackson here. You can talk yourself into that one pretty easily. You look at the Jags and you go, is it even in there? Because listen, and maybe Caleb can never get there. And maybe this goes down as like, wow, how did that happen? Very possible. But at least there's a ton of hope there, right? He's a very, very young player, 1 season, bad coaching staff. Like, we've seen Trevor now with several guys. We've seen Trevor with like capable offensive talent. The guy's a turnover machine. And now listen, this isn't totally his fault. I mean, his offensive line kind of in shambles. And I haven't seen the clip of the play in which he got hurt on. But like, he's been hurt a couple times now. And he makes an astronomical amount of money. So anytime you guarantee someone $200 million, like eventually it comes due on the books. So you already got the best year in terms of low cap number once you sign. It's always the first year. And the second year is probably obviously the second best. And then it starts getting weird 3rd and 4th year. Well, if he ain't the guy, like, that's a pretty bad job. It really is. And that's also a job where people's careers go to, I don't know, just kind of end. It is not good to become a head coach with Jacksonville, especially first-time head coaches. So I think there are a ton of question marks just with this operation and what is going to happen moving forward. And if Trevor does eventually need season-ending surgery, I think that's even a bigger red flag on this off-season job. I really do. Okay, let's end it with Fugazi Friday. And I was thinking about this last week. I had walked in the house from golf, a couple cocktails deep, and Maria looks at me and goes, "Did you see Jason Kelce? What happened today?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And then she shows me the clip of the dude, calling him gay with not that word, with the F word, and him flipping, right? Carrying 12 pack of beer, just trying to have a good time, which I think is pretty insane. Like, I get why people talk a lot of shit on the internet to other people, things that you would never say to someone else's face because you never have to confront them. Totally understandable. Like, it makes sense. Like, we're at the point now where it's obvious why this happens. It's just a basic uh human laboratory, right? But it's another thing to see a guy, especially an offensive lineman. Kelce is not small, maybe small for like NFL O lineman standards. Always the knock was like, actually, he didn't weigh that much relative to a lot of offensive linemen. But that's not the point here. Relative to the guys screaming at him, he would beat the shit out of them all without hesitation. You could tie his arms behind his back and he would kill these guys. So these guys, liquid courage, him saying it, I just don't understand. I'm at the point now, and I get where he's embarrassed in his quotes, in his apology on ESPN about just like it was just a bad look. And listen, I don't think it was. I don't think anyone with a brain has a problem with anything he did. I mean, literally any. If he would have picked up the dude and slammed him to the ground, no one would have said shit. I do struggle with apologies. Like, and I'm not blaming him for doing it. I don't know. He claims ESPN didn't tell him to do it. Obviously, Disney, kind of a, I mean, historically pretty sensitive company when it comes to shit like that. But like, who are we apologizing to? Like, I get it when you screw up and you have to apologize directly to your wife or your business partner or your boss, like a one-on-one apology. Like, hey, man, this was wrong. But when we do these public apologies, like a shotgun blast, and listen, when I worked in radio, I got in trouble a couple times, and I was kind of forced to do it. And I even remember thinking like who's this? Who am I doing this to? Like, if I offended one individual and he could walk up to me and be like, "Hey, man, what you said, that was really wrong," and I could be like, "Hey, man, I didn't mean to." Obviously, you're just gonna naturally, if you talk for a living, offend some people or piss some people off. Like, welcome to fucking life. But if you had a one-on-one interaction, like, hey, man, I didn't mean, I apologize for that, right? Just a simple human interaction. But when we do these like broadcast ones, like these shotgun blast ones, like, who's this? What's the point of this? I just don't understand, especially with something in a situation where it's like, I think you got universal agreement that honestly you could have. The problem is like he can't swing on the guy. Not that he did, but if he did, he probably shattered the guy's jaw. Then you got problems. But like what he did, slamming the guy's phone, which was pretty funny. Then he slams the phone. He picks up the phone. He takes the phone with him. I just, I just don't get these apologies. And I think we're at the point now with the way the world's turning. I mean, you saw the authenticity of the voting public in America from California all the way to New York. Like, people are kind of tired of the fake bullshit all over the place. I think it's kind of unneeded. And a situation like this, like, there's no point to it. There really is not. So I think these public apologies, especially in situations where I don't know who disagrees with what you did. And this is not blaming, like, I understand why he did it. And when you hear him talk, like, he's embarrassed, and I get it, but like spraying this out to the world, like, what's the point of it? Like, there's not like, well, you do this and then this results in this. It's completely meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. So I just think these public apologies with media people or just celebrities or whatever are just pretty pointless. Like, I really, I just don't think there's any, they don't result in anything.